You want to hear the other reason that I don't think it's a Bird Magic era? I think you're gonna hate this one as well, given your LSU ties.
Wow.
Caitlin doesn't have a Bird or a Magic. I think she's going to spend her entire career, probably up until the point that JuJu ends up in the W, but there is still going to be such an age gap with that, with so many people trying to pretend that she has a genuine foil. And that conversation is always going to be like in disservice to that player. It is such a disservice to Angel Reese that every conversation around her is in comparison to Caitlin Clark because now you have this elite rebounder, this elite defensive player. Chicago Sky were incredible defensively every time she was on the court, who has a ton of potential in her own right, and is if it wasn't, if she wasn't going up against this generational rookie that is changing everything, would have been rookie of the year, and would have been part like the big conversation that we're having. But because everything is through the lens of Caitlin, we focus a lot more on her flaws. And there's a lot of other reasons we focus a lot more on her flaws as well. So it happened with Angel. I think Paige is going to come into the league and it's going to happen to her. Paige is going to come into the league and she's going to be incredible. I think she's going to be like MJ to like she's going to be Clyde to Caitlin's MJ, where Clyde Drexler has an incredible career, wins titles, is a winner, but is always going to be in that conversation up against MJ, and that's going to do a disservice to Paige's legacy. And we're going to go on and on like this because we have this thing in sports where we think we need foils, and we don't always. I don't think we actually all need foils. The great players didn't need a foil. Tiger didn't need a foil. Tiger never had a foil. MJ never really had a foil either.
So this will be the last time I come on the podcast. Because you're taunting me, and you're aware that you're doing it.
Personally attack you, yes.
You're taunting. Okay, so let me say a couple of things, and let me try to say these things without disparaging the great Caitlin Clark, because great is not an adjective that is even fitting to Caitlin Clark. She is a spectacular player, once in a generational talent. Okay, first of all, she's never won anything. Okay, so her main foil right now is the mirror.
Bad.
So that's the.
I like that though. That should be the foil. That should be the conversation.
That's her main foil right now, is the mirror. Okay. I'd also argue something else. I'd argue that Bird and Magic weren't foils because of the excellence that they exuded on the basketball court. That was only a part of it. Okay. They were cultural foils more than they were anything else. See, at the time that people are choosing to root for, people root for excellence all the time, but they also root for resemblance. The question is, are there two athletes that are good enough that you have to pay attention to them, which I would agree Angel Reese is, right? Good enough that you have to pay attention to them, and are representative of specific things that people can identify with. And that is what happened to me with Bird and Magic. Obviously, I'm not saying anything new. Bird represented oh my God, it's almost scripted. I don't think it's even real, right? Bird, French Lick, Indiana, big, slow, insanely talented, devastatingly competitive white guy, right? Who literally wins, like he wins with whiteness. I'm just big, slow, and competitive, but I can shoot it. I can pass it. I'm tough as nails, all of that. And Magic, wearing a fur coat before the game, LA Showtime. It was the clash of that America got in between, and it becomes an argument about which style of basketball and it becomes an argument about cultural supremacy. As dark and kind of dangerous that can be to flirt with, that is happening with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. You're looking at someone, Angel in all of her flashiness, Angel in all of her brashness, Angel in all of her hip hop bravado, all of that stuff, against Caitlin Clark, who people view as America's golden girl. If Angel can be a relevant enough player, it will kind of always be about that, because as great as JuJu is, as great as Paige is, they have yet to demonstrate that they have that extra thing that you can't teach that makes people care. When people care, they care. And when they don't, they don't. You can't score them
Hmm.
into caring. You can't beg them into caring. When you have that thing that makes people care, that is something that's marketable and something that you can't teach. And both Angel and Caitlin have that in a way that I don't think players, I don't want to diss the W. I think this amount of give a fuck is the skill is not new, but this amount of give a
Hmm.
fuck could be new to the W for a lot of the new fans.
Hmm. I think so. I definitely agree with what you're saying. I think there are interesting wrinkles, especially when you think about Magic. Like going back to that, um, one of the things I always wonder about is because like some of the things that you talked about with Bird, when you said winning with whiteness, I think those were also the traits that were perceived to be winning with whiteness as well, because at that time there was also this perception of, black basketball players not being skill players. Um, but you have Magic Johnson, that wasn't true, but you have Magic Johnson come in, and I do wonder if there was a degree to which he just broke like the brain of your average racist, in that not only is he just smiling all the time and kind of impossible not to like, but he has this game where if you like respect basketball and you like respect skill and you respect passing, like it's kind of impossible not to respect that as well. And in that sense, I don't think like there has been a player that has come like I think in a strange way maybe JuJu could be that. And I think JuJu has the thing that you're talking about. She's young. So we haven't really seen it on a big stage yet. She had her team, was a Final Four out last year, and she just isn't like she's not quite there yet. She's still young, but I think she has it. I think her
You think Juju has the star power
I
that
think
Angel Reese does?
absolutely she has it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, number of reasons. Number of reasons. Like we can start with on the court. She has this play style that I think is just impossible to get away from. Like you start watching Juju highlights, you want to keep watching Juju highlights. She has charisma. She is, when you talk about like watching her play, she's incredibly fluid. She's got like the juking. I always call her like a heliocentric Carmelo Anthony. She's an incredible defensive player. She's really entertaining. She's got a little LeBron in her. She had 5 blocks and 3 steals last night. I don't think anybody has done that in the NCAA for the women's side in the last 15 years. That could be me putting stuff into her hoop stats that is incorrect. I checked with one of my friends. I haven't heard back yet, but that as of now, last time I checked, that is the case. And she has an incredible story as well. Like she is from Watts.
Yeah.
Her ancestry in Watts is really fascinating. Her great grandfather was a community organizer there. There is a park in Watts that is named after him. That is the same
Yeah.
park that she grew up playing basketball. Her grandpa still is like I was reading a story. Gosh, like it was over this summer. I was reading this story
Can I say
about
something real quick?
yeah.
Real quick.
Hmm.
I'm gonna be honest with you. All of that stuff that you just said
Hmm.
is like dope for like an ESPN feature before the game. I don't know if motherfuckers care about that type of shit, man.
I think if they care about you, they start to care about that. I think it's the same thing with Caitlin in Iowa, right? Like she talks about, I want to put Iowa on the map. We don't care about that unless we care about Caitlin. But once we care about Caitlin, then everybody's going crazy for the Wright Thompson ESPN story, which, by the way, I did think add to her legend. I think I would not be surprised if something like that happens with Juju over the next 2 or 3 years as well, where you really do blow out and you tell this story about this player who not only is look, and I think there's already enough proof that she's captivating. Like, I went to some USC games last year. Look, I'm not gonna pretend I went to USC games the year before Juju got
Mm-hmm.
there. I'm gonna guess that they were a little bit more poppin' when I went, and it's gonna be the same situation this coming season too, except with like more hype. Like you got like Will Ferrell out in the sidelines. You got Cheryl Miller, and USC is also a school that has like this hallowed history in and of itself
For
too.
sure. Yeah.
with Cheryl, with Cynthia Cooper, and then frankly just fell off the face of relevant college basketball for the last 20 years before Juju got there. So she decided she could have gone to Stanford, she could have gone to South Carolina. She decided, I'm gonna stay home. I'm gonna go to USC too, which also has more relevance in Los Angeles as well in terms of what she's trying to do too. But I do think all of those things can come together. And it's also, I think the other thing is it's genuine. Like I was reading a story this summer about the same community organization that Watkins started is now like headed by Juju's grandpa. Um, and there was a story that came out about how they pushed to get a study done on the lead content in the water there, and it was exceptionally high. Like a lot of people in Watts really just drink tap water for their main resource. And this wasn't me like doing a Juju story or anything like that. I was just like, I think I was listening to a podcast.
Hmm.
Um, and who was it that was like talking in that story? It was Ted Watkins. So like there is still a genuine level of like grassroots involvement in that community, and I think it's genuinely important to her that like the way that she builds her basketball brand is rooted in all of that. And there's ways that obviously that will be leveraged for branding as well, but it gives her a really compelling story. And I think she's just got the thing. She's got the game. She's got the charisma. She's not somebody who's going to be like a huge talker by any means. Maybe later on in her career. But I think she's got it. I think she's got the thing. I think it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I'm really the more um the older I get, the more I'm into this. I am the more I get more of this because I'm a big boxing fan. I love boxing,
Mhm.
and just the reasons why people care about a fire is so interesting. Like if I was to sit in like a non-boxing fan and just give people the best boxers, Inoue, Terrence Crawford, Usyk, all of these guys, it, it would the fact that they're amazing and they have great stories always always matters. But there's sometimes this thing, and it doesn't always last, to your point, because at some point you have to continuously back this up with excellence in whatever given field this is. But there's sometimes this thing, for whatever reason, that makes people want you to succeed or want you to fail or just tune into you. And it's very difficult. You you don't even know it when you see it. You know it when you feel it. Oh, what is this person up to today? I remember when I was watching Steph back in the day. Steph is at Davidson. And I'm like, what the hell is this? What is this? Who told him he
Mhm.
could dominate? He
Right.
wasn't supposed to dominate.
Hmm.
Why is he dominating? And then it was like, okay, well, it's fun in college. He won't dominate when he gets to the league. And then a couple of years, it's iffy. And then all of a sudden, he goes crazy on New York. And I'm like, wait, is he dominating again? Why is he dominating? And it's just infectious. But I think the fact that there are other players to come in that even though you're, ridiculous and irrational hatred of LSU, I don't know what's going on in this podcast. That there are other players that we can talk about that can challenge Caitlin outside of Angel Reese for that type of stardom and that type of interest. That's another reason why I really feel like the W is in a great place. From my little knowledge, my 3-year fandom, not talking about the Comets and stuff back in the day when the league first started and I was in high school and college. Talking about from my fandom, I just feel like I have more conversations about the WNBA. I hear more passionate arguments about the WNBA. I see more coverage and focus on what's going on in the WNBA. I just feel like it's a really good time for the league. And I hope that it continues to grow in the same way.
Yeah, I feel you. Look, like even like, the way that we talk about the game is changing as well. Like Juju has the game that she has yesterday. She had like a really incredible game. Like she had 27 points, 10 rebounds, 5 blocks, 4 assists, 3 steals. But she had 9 turnovers. And I think so. There were a couple of things that I thought were really funny and really telling. There were people on Twitter that were mashing up her face and Caitlin's, to make a joke about the turnover stuff.
Yeah.
But also just the fact that a performance like that is now actually really scrutinized as well, and it can create a lot of conversations about where she goes from here. You can say, oh well, wasn't even a great game for Juju, and she still accounted for like over 50% of USC's offense. You can also make the argument that there's still a lot in her game that she needs to improve. Like you can't, if you want to be like the main ball handler, you can't be, turning it
Giving it
over.
away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
giving it away like that. There's also like this really talented recruiting class that has come in for USC, and they also went and they signed a new point guard in Talia Van Olhoffen as well, who came through the transfer portal, and they've got a senior in Rhea Marshall. All those pieces aren't going to work together. They just aren't. So you have like this other drama that it's going to be a part of this season as well. Like you can already see it sort of not festering off the court, but on the court in terms of how all those players fit together and they all need more spacing. That to me is already like the makings of a compelling story that no matter who you are, this is what I think that sports, oh, like a compelling sports story always needs, is a lot of different entry points. If you are like an X's and O's head, if you just want to, watch Juju break people down in the pick and roll and just analyze her reads, there's that. If you want to watch Kiki Iriafin in the post, there's that. If you want to pay attention to the drama, the people management, the coaching, like how are you going to go about the conversation of one of these important players being benched? There's that there for you. There is a larger social story of all of it as well. There is who Juju is and what she represents. I think that this particular USC team is going to have all of those elements.
Hmm. Let me ask you this. People talked about what an important season it was for the WNBA this past year with Angel and Caitlin being rookies.
Mhm.
How important is this women's basketball season on the NCAA level that we're about to go into? Because the interest in women's college basketball obviously was a gigantic feeder into
Mhm.
some of the interest we saw in the WNBA. Now, those two big names are gone. You talked about some of the players that are still there, but how is this? Don't those players that you're talking about, is there a lot of pressure on them to step in and fill the shoes of some of the stars that the sport lost?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question because I think if you had asked me this a month ago, I would have said absolutely. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, we're now heading, college basketball is has started. It started Monday, and still the main conversations that we're having about women's basketball are still around the WNBA. We're still having conversations around unrivaled, and will Caitlin Clark play or not? Like, there's a lot of off-season conversation around who the Fever are gonna sign. Is Kelsey Plum gonna leave the Las Vegas Aces? Stephanie White being the new Fever coach. Just overall WNBA coaching carousel. Tyler Marsh getting hired the Chicago Sky. It
Yeah.
feels like, honestly, all of that has actually overshadowed the beginning of the college basketball season. Now, maybe that won't carry over. Maybe there'll be a time in March, post unrivaled, if Kate, like whether we'll see if Caitlin plays, where yeah, like that time of year will probably be all women's college basketball. But right now, in this particular moment, like you host a show as well. Like I'm trying to figure out like what do I talk about more here? Because
Mm-hmm.
these games just started, but at the same time, um, all I see people talking about are these other things like the aftermath of the WNBA season and what's coming next. I think that this particular off season is going to be really interesting, and that I think that alongside the mainstream attention that the W got in the season, it is carried over to the off season. People are really invested in what's going to happen.